Now that Bloober Team has proven themselves to Silent Hill fans, what would you guys like to see for the next Silent Hill game? More remakes? Some new original games set in the Silent Hill universe? Or maybe a prequel or two after Silent Hill F? We can expect to see Silent Hill Townfall and Silent Hill F, a brand new title and prequels set in Japan in the 1960s. I have already speculated on what I believe Ryukishi may bring to the story and series of Silent Hill with Silent Hill F, after being a huge fan of his works for years. I'm not really sure what Townfall will be like, but having played some of No Code's last game, Observation, I have no doubts that they will bring something good and new to the table as well. I'm also sure that we will get some really great remakes for Silent Hill 1, 3, and 4 as well, and I absolutely can't wait for those. But what about other potential Silent Hill games aside from the remakes and the games we already know about? What other stories and mysteries could they explore from Silent Hill? Are there any events you'd like to see further fleshed out or explored? Personally, for me, the timeline and history of Silent Hill has always been fascinating to me. There are so many stories and so much lore from the town of Silent Hill that could be brought to life and further fleshed out and explored. I would also love to see some games that expand on the history and the town of Silent Hill and its mystical and spiritual history and some of the events from the past. Here's my list of different stories I'd like to see explored in future Silent Hill games. The Little Baroness, a reimagining of the events from Silent Hill the arcade. One forgotten gem most Silent Hill fans have forgotten about, or like me, probably didn't even know existed until recently, is the Silent Hill arcade game, which was an on-rails first-person light gun arcade-style shooter in the same vein as Sega's House of the Dead series. The game was made by Team Silent in 2007 and released in select arcades across Japan, Europe, and North America, and featured mostly reused assets such as monsters, locations, and music from the previous Silent Hill games. Despite the reused assets, though, the game had its own story with cinematics and cutscenes, and multiple endings that actually focused on exploring the mysterious Toluca Lake in Silent Hill, the ghosts trapped there, and unraveling the mystery of the steamship known as the Little Baroness, a ship from 1918 that mysteriously disappeared, taking its 14 passengers and crew members along with it. In the games, Toluca Lake has never really been fully explored and has a lot of death and mystery surrounding it and the people who've died there. It's pretty huge at 60 acres, but even in the early days, Toluca Lake seemed cursed when in the early 1900s a flood broke out in Silent Hill and Toluca Lake, leading to the spread of a disease, causing the death of 67 people. Eventually, though, the lake became a huge tourist attraction for the town, even offering boat cruises and ferry rides across the lake. However, after the disappearance of the Little Baroness in 1918, many ghost stories and eerie urban legends about the history of the lake began to arise from ancient beliefs that the spirits of those who died from the flood and disease resided at the bottom of the lake, and that they were always waiting to beckon and take living souls to join them to their death in the lake. After this, rumors spread that anyone who went out on the lake would disappear or die, and ghostly sightings of the Little Baroness, as well as a little girl with a teddy bear, along with her mother and a captain, was reported to be seen on occasion. The story of the Silent Hill arcade game explores who some of those people were on the Little Baroness and why they haunt the lake. The game takes place in 1993 and involves several members of a university's occult club who go to Silent Hill to investigate the lake to try and unearth and find the dead bodies. It's there that the group explores the town of Silent Hill and the lake and actually find the remains of the Little Baroness ship adrift in the lake. The game mostly centers on two characters, Eric Walsh, the great-grandson of the captain of the Little Baroness, and Tina, who comes to the town to visit her young friend, Emily Anderson, the daughter of the Silent Hill Historian Society's head librarian, Frank Anderson, who also looks similar to the little girl who drowned on the steamboat. Emily also gets caught up in the events when her mother begins haunting her dreams and calling her to Toluca Lake. I would absolutely love to see Bloober Team or even another fully capable studio create a full reimagining or remake of this game, making it into a fully fledged third-person or even first-person Silent Hill game, further expanding on the story and characters and creating whole new enemies and monsters to the game. The game could also have brand new enemies that would fit better with Toluca Lake, the Little Baroness passengers and the crew members, and the college students that go to Silent Hill to investigate it. They could really flesh out and focus more on these characters, both the crew and passengers of the ship, with the captain and the little girl Hannah and her mother, and maybe even have playable flashbacks to 1918 where you play as them to find out what happened. They could also even further explore what happens with the college students, especially with Eric Walsh being the great-grandson of the captain of the Little Baroness, and actually having us find out more about the other main protagonist, Tina, as well, and what they experience in the present time in 1993 as they explore the town and Toluca Lake and uncover more of the mystery of it. Each college student could be playable and or further fleshed out a lot more, and experience their own versions of the Otherworld and the Nightmare World. And we could possibly even see how their traumas are affecting the town with different enemies and monsters, and maybe even having some of the college students experiencing flashbacks or hauntings and connections to different members of the crew's ship and passengers. Furthermore, they could also delve into more of what happened with Frank Anderson and his daughter Emily, who bears a striking resemblance to the girl from the boat, as well as the death of her mother, Michelle Anderson, who was killed in a home burglary incident that poor Emily witnessed. We could play as Emily as she is haunted by trauma from that horrific event and deals with visions and dreams of her dead mother and possibly hearing and seeing her mother calling her back to Toluca Lake. Playing as the college students would also be a wonderful opportunity to let us go under the water and explore the bottom of Toluca Lake and see what kind of horrors and mysteries await there in the lake beneath the town of Silent Hill. Having a Silent Hill game underwater and seeing what kind of horrors and mysteries await there beneath the town of Silent Hill in Toluca Lake, and being able to see the dead bodies and people that drowned in the lake, like some of the underwater games I've played like Narcosis, Soma, and Echo Night, will be really unique and amazing to see. Bloober is no stranger to horror games set at sea after all, since Layers of Fear 2 took place on a ship as well. But imagining an underwater Silent Hill game with its own otherworld under the sea would be really different and very intense, scary, and fascinating. Bloober Team would also have a lot more creative freedom and control to take the story and characters in whatever direction they'd want to and flesh it out a lot more. This time, instead of just being in the town, we could further explore the haunted and abandoned steamship itself, and even go inside the lake and explore the bottom of the sea, with each student experiencing flashbacks, hauntings, monsters, and ghosts, and their own versions of the nightmarish otherworld, and trying to piece together the events of the past. I've always been fascinated by the Bermuda Triangle, and I absolutely love stories and movies about missing and haunted ghost ships, and being able to experience a Silent Hill version of a haunted ghost ship or inside the lake under the sea, a la games and movies like Ghost Ship, Triangle, Death Ship, Deep Rising, would be absolutely amazing if they can pull it off. 2. The mysterious disappearance of forgotten town hero Patrick Chester. In Rosewater Park in the South Vale district of Silent Hill, there stands a statue with a missing head and arms. This statue is supposedly that of a mysterious war hero named Patrick Chester. Not much is known about Patrick, but on his grave it says he was the son of Edward Chester and that he fought and died for the people, for liberty, and for all our tomorrows. According to the records and on the Silent Hill Historical Society website that Konami published, it seems that Patrick Chester was a cavalryman who fought in the Civil War from 1861 to 1865. He also fought alongside his father, Edward, and both were killed in battle. However, aside from the Chesters being from Silent Hill, not much else was known about him and his father, or why Patrick came to be regarded as a hero. The only thing that is known is that he did something important and worthy of being remembered during the war, and all that remains of him is a statue, which stands as a symbol of his supposed heroism during the Civil War. The Civil War in the 1860s in Silent Hill and the story of the Chesters is another interesting premise that I feel is ripe for the picking to explore and expand upon. And I feel like Bloober Team and Konami, or even another studio, could create a really terrifying prequel set during the Civil War and what that was like in Silent Hill. We could even see the creation of the Toluca prison camp and experience the horrors of what that was like to be there during the Civil War, before it was turned into Toluca prison. Movies that already inspired Silent Hill, like Jacob's Ladder, already explore similar themes of war veterans and soldiers facing the horrors of war and the terrible and psychological effects and drama from it. After all, they do say war is hell, and Silent Hill is like your own personal hell after all. We could play as Patrick Chester in the 1800s and experience the horrors of what he went through in the Civil War, and even find out what his life was like in Silent Hill. Horror movies based on war and soldiers like Death Watch, Our Point, Dog Soldiers, Bunker, and Ghosts of War have done great jobs with blending war with supernatural terrors and the psychological traumas and effects from it. And I feel like they could do an excellent job of exploring the trenches in a horror game, like they did with World War horror-themed games such as Ad Infinitum, Amnesia the Bunker, and The Trenches. Imagining a unique Silent Hill game set in terrifying trenches and underground bunkers, and exploring the Toluca prison camp, and experiencing the effects and trauma of war mixed in with the supernatural effects of the town of Silent Hill and the Otherworld, could be a real treat. We could even find out what the Chester family was like, what the relationship was like between Patrick and his father, and what he did during the war that caused the town to memorialize him in such a way. Perhaps they were mistaken, and Patrick was forced to join the war by his father, and he snapped. That would definitely make for an interesting story and a surprising twist that would make you think twice when looking at that statue, knowing it was actually put up to commemorate someone who did not deserve it. I do know that Bloober was working on a horror game set in the World War or during a war, and they touched on themes like this in their Blair Witch game, so I definitely think they'd be able to further explore it with a Silent Hill prequel game like this. Number 3. The disappearance of famous painter Alan Smith. Yes, painters. This one actually seems like a no-brainer, just because it's a subject that Bloober has already delved deep into with their classic Layers of Fear game. However, I honestly think Bloober could probably bring a lot more to the table here, and that there could be a lot more to explore with Alan Smith, since he too disappeared during the Civil War in 1861. And, if not Bloober, then maybe another studio could take on the task. This could be something that they could do also set during the war, and if they don't want to explore the Chesters and what happened to them, perhaps they could explore both the Chesters and Alan Smith's disappearances in the same game, or in the Townfall anthology series that Konami is working on with various other studios like Annapurna. Not much is known about Alan Smith, not even his date and place of birth or death, but he was a 19th century artist known for his oil paintings and drawings. He loved the vast American wilderness and had a talent for capturing the sacred lands around America and the quiet everyday lives of the people there who lived peacefully within it. One of his most famous works was a painting of Toluca Lake called Waterfront Landscape, and was actually believed to have been painted in the 1820s. No one knows how he died or where he went, just that he mysteriously disappeared and was never heard from again after the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861. I feel like this story and the story of the Chesters, as I mentioned, would be a very fascinating one to explore, especially in a prequel dating back to the 1800s when the town of Silent Hill was first formed. I know that most people believe that the town's powers got corrupted and twisted after what happened with Alyssa in the first Silent Hill game, but the land and town of Silent Hill has always been a place of power and of spirits, the place originally being known as the Place of Silent Spirits, And the indigenous people worship spirits there on the sacred land, and even had their own form of spirituality and native faiths that they worshiped there, even before the order was formed. They would even use the giant stone and the rituals for talking to dead ancestors. Not only that, but the place has always seemed to be cursed, as once the settlers first began arriving and taking over the land, a devastating epidemic occurred, forcing them all to abandon it before they revived it and turned it into Silent Hill. This history was explored a bit more in the Silent Hill comic called Past Life that takes place in the 1860s, where it was revealed that a Cherokee woman named Enola and her tribe and other indigenous people like her were horribly wronged by the settlers and had everything taken from them. She has a very interesting quote about the spirits of Silent Hill, exclaiming that the spirits were silent for too long, and that these spirits will no longer be silent, but that they cry out and yearn to be avenged, and that they have only just begun. She mentions that the silence is ending, and that the time has come for a whole new kind of manifest destiny to begin. After that, there were numerous unsettling events that happened. Another epidemic broke out in the 1810s. The Civil War broke out too, leading to many people being killed and going missing. And in 1890, a series of disappearances occurred. Then, in the early 1900s, a devastating flood hit Silent Hill and Toluca Lake. Furthermore, after the Little Baroness steamship went missing and was found, a group of high schoolers also went missing in the lake in 1938. As you can see, the town of Silent Hill has long been troubled with disappearances, death, disease, and misfortune since it was founded, both before and after the cults were formed. Having a prequel set in the 1800s to actually explore some of Silent Hill's deep roots and history, and finding out what happened to Alan Smith or even the Chesters, and what was going on in the town in those early days with the cults, would be great to see and explore. We could even see how different the town and places like the Toluca prison camp and Brookhaven Hospital were like in those early days, and even explore what happened during the Civil War in Silent Hill with all that drama and death. I also feel like with the game being set in the 1800s and in the 1860s, maybe we could even see a retelling of the events from the comic Silent Hill Past Life from a different point of view this time, where we could find out more about the history of Silent Hill, how the settlers got the land, and maybe even find out more about the indigenous people, like Enola, the Cherokee elder woman and her tribe and ancestors, who also lived there, and if it was really used for rituals and worship in the 1800s. Enola herself does seem to know a lot about the spirits of the land of Silent Hill, so we could even find out more about her, her family, and the origins of the land. That being said, Townfall is also supposed to be an episodic anthology series, so I could definitely see Townfall being used to tell these types of different stories set throughout Silent Hill's different time periods, especially with a name like Townfall, which I would personally be very interested in seeing. Number 4. Silent Hill VR game. Since I love VR, this one is a bit of a dream project for me, but one that is not impossible, given that Konami filed a trademark with Silent Hill that mentions covering both game software as well as headsets for virtual reality, hinting perhaps at some kind of Silent Hill VR title. Whether this was just a rumor or was cancelled or not, I suppose we wouldn't know, at least not for a while. Still, I really love VR, and playing big games like Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, and Resident Evil 4 Remake in VR on the PlayStation VR 2 and PC VR is one of the best and most immersive and terrifying experiences I've ever played, and I have always dreamed of an official Silent Hill VR game. It's one thing playing games on a flat screen in front of you on the TV or your computer, but it's a whole other terrifying experience when you're actually there, inside that game, inside that world, with the monsters and horrors all around and right in front of you, and being able to actually hit them or having them grab and kill you is really intense and incredibly terrifying. Horror games in VR is on another level, and It's honestly hard to go back playing on a flat screen and still being scared just looking at characters on a screen, as opposed to actually being inside of the game, being fully immersed in that world and living that horrific experience that you can't escape from and being that character yourself. I think the closest we've ever really come to a Silent Hill game in VR was probably Organ Quarter and Lies Beneath. Two amazing Silent Hill-like VR survival horror games that I really enjoyed, but didn't quite scratch that itch for the real thing. Having the Silent Hill 2 remake redone in first person would be absolutely incredible. Konami wouldn't even need Bloober Team to do it, nor would they even need their own VR team. They could just get the guys over at Flat to VR Studios to port it to VR, since it already works in their Unreal Engine VR injector mod. It would just need a better first-person mode, 6 stock motion controls for full VR motion and physics, and some tweaks here and there, and I'm sure they would do an amazing job, like they've done with so many of their other VR mods. They were able to recently take a completely flat-screen musical game like Trombone Champ and completely transformed it into a fully fledged VR game with motion controls and physics, and all the VR mechanics that many high-quality AAA made-for-VR games have. So I have no doubt that they could do an even better job with Silent Hill. Having said that though, I think what I'd like the most would probably be a completely new, fully fledged and completely built up from the ground Silent Hill VR game, like Batman, Arkham Shadow, and the recent Metro Awakening and Alien Rogue Incursion VR games. I would absolutely love a Silent Hill VR game that would take full advantage of the capabilities of virtual reality, and if it's a VR2 game or PlayStation VR2 exclusive, maybe even incorporating some cool mechanics using the eye tracking capabilities to really mess with your mind and further add to the immersion and horror of the experience. They could even make the game unique to each player based on their own fears or reactions, like they sort of did with the psych profile in Silent Hill Shattered Memories. Perhaps we could have some kind of therapy session, or fill out some kind of questionnaire or something, or even have the game change things based on your responses throughout the game, like if you look at, close your eyes, or turn your head away in fear and disgust from certain things. Since Silent Hill is a town that manifests and shapes itself around a person's inner psyche and their inner fears, trauma, and desire, having a unique built from the ground up Silent Hill VR game that would twist and manifest things based on your own fears, desires, and trauma could be a very scary and immersive experience that would be different based on each person playing it, and is something that I would love to see done right. However, it would require a lot of effort and would be hard to do right, and I'm honestly not sure if the tech inside the PlayStation VR 2 would be capable of something that advanced right now. Even if we can't get something like that though, just having a first-person Silent Hill VR game built from the ground up for VR with lots of VR mechanics and its own new story and characters to explore would still be amazing. I'd even take a VR mode a la Resident Evil for the Silent Hill 2 remake or any future Silent Hill remakes. In particular, I actually think a first-person VR version for the Silent Hill 4 The Room remake would be a really natural and perfect fit for being remade in VR, since the game already has first-person sections anyway, and being able to experience the claustrophobic atmosphere of being trapped in Henry's apartment with all the hauntings and ghosts will be absolutely terrifying, and a nice way to contrast with being able to explore the other worlds and different places that Henry is able to visit when he leaves the apartment, this time experiencing them in first person as well, instead of just third person. Number 5. The original idea for Silent Hill 5. Ironically, the fifth and final game on my list. The original idea and concept for Silent Hill 5 that Team Silent was originally working on before Konami cancelled it and disbanded Team Silent was supposed to be more of a standalone spiritual successor, or sequel if you will, to Silent Hill 2. The game was supposedly going to be similar in story, with the game featuring another emotionally disturbed man who was actually one of the patients mentioned in the hospital James went to in Silent Hill 2. According to interviews with the developers, his main character would have had scenes involving therapists like Silent Hill Shattered Memories, and, more interestingly, would have even featured a new concept and a big change with using themes of daylight and daylight horror. With the town of Silent Hill starting out this time as a normal sunny town with people going about their normal daily lives, only to have everything slowly begin to rot away as the game progresses. Some members of the team described the idea for the daylight horror as being inspired by movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Jacob's Ladder, with the horror happening in broad daylight. Early ideas for the game would have even had the monsters reacting differently based on darkness and light, and some kind of dark world as well. According to interviews, the game was supposedly going to have very impressive otherworld. The combat would have taken more of a backseat compared to the more combat-heavy Silent Hill 4, and the story was going to be the darkest story they've ever come up with. Sadly though, this game was canned, and Konami disbanded Team Silent in favor of having Western Studios work on a new Silent Hill game that would eventually become Silent Hill Homecoming. I don't know about you guys, but these early concepts and ideas sound fantastic to me. They sound really refreshing, unique, and creepy, and could have been really special and would have been amazing to see come to life. I honestly loved how Team Silent did something different with Silent Hill 4 The Room, and how they wanted to continue to experiment and come up with unique ideas to create something new and refreshing for each Silent Hill game. And the daylight horror angle would have been really interesting and scary. I can just imagine how creepy and cool it would have been finally seeing the normal town of Silent Hill alive, with regular, everyday people going about their life, and then having the other world slowly rotting away and taking over the town throughout the game. Becoming darker, tense, and much more sinister and scarier, and actually having to face the horrors both during the day and having the monsters reacting differently based on light or darkness. With Akira Yamaoka, Ito, and some of the staff members from Team Silent actually back at Konami, it would be amazing to see them try to recreate or finally make this game with the original story and ideas they had. I would absolutely love to see this story and game come to life, and for them to make the original Silent Hill 5 that they originally wanted to make. Interestingly enough, they might even be reusing some of these ideas and concepts with Silent Hill F, considering that the teaser trailer seemed to feature a sunny Japanese town being overtaken by red rotting vines and slowly being overtaken by the other world. Still, it would be nice to see Konami bring back Team Silent and use those stories and ideas for the original Silent Hill 5 game that they were going to create. Perhaps Bloober could help make it happen, working with Ito and Yamaoka to make some sort of Silent Hill 5 remake or reimagining. If not, then perhaps we could see a game made from one or two of those cell phone comics that Masahiro Ito wrote before Team Silent was disbanded, like Cage of Cradle, which is considered a prequel to Silent Hill 1, or even Double Under Dusk, which was set on Toluca Lake Island. Well, those are my top 5 picks for what stories or content I'd like to see for future Silent Hill games. What do you guys think? Do you like these ideas, hate them, or have any ideas of your own? If so, leave a comment below and tell me what you'd like to see after Silent Hill Townfall, Silent Hill F, and the inevitable Silent Hill 1, 3, and 4 remakes. If you like this content, please subscribe to get notified, and in the meantime, you can check out my Ryukishi deep dive and predictions for the upcoming Silent Hill F game. See you all next time!